Welcome to Microfoam. I'm Krystal,
I'm Anna.
and this is the podcast of foamy matcha, sharp marketing, and no fluff. And today we're talking about Threads. It's my favorite social
And
media
drinking
platform right now.
matcha.
And drinking matcha, yes. I
As
have
always.
you know what? I have to be so real with you. This morning, I got myself a Dutch Bros.
Oh, okay.
A big giant Dutch Bros because I have been in the weeds with things lately. This week has been a little crazy, and I woke up and I was like, I need like a gallon of coffee to get me through today. So,
But you
I
woke
got
up and left the house. That's what's important. Because I'm not going
yes.
I have somewhere to go later, but I'm waking up. I'm not going anywhere. But yeah.
I am typically like I will just do a tiny cortado at home, like a double
Mm-hmm.
espresso cortado. Um, but yeah, when things get busy, I'm like, I'm gonna put the dog in the car and we're just gonna go down to Dutch Bros. And it was a sticker day too. Gosh, if someday we
Oh,
have to
they
talk
pulled
about
you
like
in.
yes, the collateral, the branding collateral. I'm like, it really does work on such a finite level where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get my coffee, I'll get my cute sticker, and we'll call it a day. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I wish I had a cute little place to go to like that.
yeah.
That's why I stay home. I have to
Yeah, there you
provide it to
go.
myself.
Do you have like a coffee shop near you that you're like just anything? You have
Nope.
nothing?
I mean, there's some, but I only want matcha or an espresso tonic. No one serves espresso tonics, and
Yeah.
nobody has good matcha. And other than me making it at home, there's a coffee shop in Charlotte, which is about an hour and a half from me, that I do
Okay.
love their espresso tonics. But otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to waste my time for. Honestly, it's
Sure.
sad. I would love to go spend my money at a coffee shop.
Yeah. Okay, so what is an espresso tonic? Because I'm just curious.
Oh my gosh. It is a shot of espresso or a double shot of espresso, tonic water.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get that from, whatever grocery store. And then if you want like a flavor, like the one I like to get at the coffee shop is a yuzu Sakura blossom. And then I've done it with just like orange peel, which I'll get at like the cocktail section at Harris Teeter. They usually have like a citrusy taste, but it's just so
Okay.
refreshing, and I'm
Interesting.
obsessed. Yeah, I'll make
I
those at home sometimes too, but I'm not the best with making espresso.
Yeah, that is really interesting to me because typically like a cortado is served with the sparkling water. And so I like the
Oh
like
yeah,
bubbly, I like that balance. So
yeah.
now I'm like, okay, maybe I'll have to try that because I highly doubt anyone around me serves those as well. I mean, have you ever been to Crema in Nashville?
I feel like I have. That sounds very familiar. I haven't been to Nashville in forever though.
Yeah, it's one of the big names, but it's probably the most I would say like new wave coffee shop, like the
Yeah.
biggest new wave coffee shop in Nashville. So maybe I'll have to go there and try some. But
Sometimes
um,
it's a summer seasonal thing because it
okay.
is like a cold drink, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's a very European thing.
Hmm.
Because like same thing, like if you get espresso or certain things, every European coffee shop is going to give you that little shot of sparkling water,
Mm-hmm.
and they just don't do that here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but definitely something to look out for, and yeah, I'm obsessed with them.
Yeah. I'll definitely give it a try. That sounds really good.
So I think we wanted to talk about Twitter threads. You talk to me about it all the time.
I
Tell me what's
know.
up.
I know. I feel like for months I've been like, Anna, you should get on
And you have.
threads. Yeah, well, I guess I'll go back and just say like I started using threads consistently for my business probably like a year and a half ago.
Oh wow.
When Instagram first rolled it out, it was kind of this like, we had already had X at the time or Twitter, and it was just like, okay, do we need this? Like, what is this
Yeah.
thing? Obviously, things unfolded the way they did, and we have kind of seen the difference of threads become more apparent. And I think the algorithm works a little bit different. Maybe we can talk about that too. But yeah, I really consistently started using it quite a while back, and after probably about 6 months of consistent just like posting, I started to see leads for myself coming through. And yeah, I think there's so much with threads that we could talk about, but I am such a believer that like It is very different than Twitter. I think
Yeah.
it offers a really unique thing that I have not found elsewhere across social media. I know you have an account on Threads, but
Yeah.
have you like dipped your toes into trying to post consistently on there, or like what's kind of your relationship with Threads right now?
Yeah, well, kind of going to your point about like when it first came out, it was like, do we need this? What is this?
Yes.
And when I noticed that, like, it was kind of a cool thing to have like your Threads number on your Instagram bio. So, like, we wanted to go ahead and, secure the account, even though it's the same thing as Instagram for all of our
Mm-hmm.
clients. And then I got one. And I think at some point my Instagram was automatically posting there. And I think I want to say tweeted, but I
Mm-hmm.
posted
Yeah.
there a couple times, but I just haven't been consistent with it. But
Mm.
yeah, I think for clients, like, we'll still post sometimes there just because it will help with like our engagement on Instagram, because you'll have it come up on people's feeds.
Yeah.
But I need to do that. I think I told you this, but I kind of have gone all into LinkedIn the last
Mm-hmm.
probably 2 or 3 months, and Threads is the next thing, and X and Bluesky, whatever,
Yeah.
is what I need to get into. I just, like, I haven't dedicated that time because I feel like right now when I wake up, I like write a LinkedIn post and get it done for the day. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm intimidated by Threads for my personal use, because I assume you're having conversations, you're posting multiple times a day. It's not just like a do this today and be done and then see the engagement kind of come in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Which it's so funny because maybe we can kind of like move into like how I like to use Threads.
Yeah.
And that is like as a testing ground. So when you're telling me that like you're doing a daily post on LinkedIn, like in this I guess like how do I want to phrase this? Like I'm probably posting on Threads somewhere between 12 and 15 times a day. Like it's
Yeah.
quite a bit.
I'm intimidated by that.
Yeah, totally, which makes sense. But when I think about posting on LinkedIn, I'm like, okay, yeah, if we're posting like once a day, like, oh my gosh, it's got to be good. Like this is the one chance for the
Yeah.
day. And so what's great about Threads is instead of feeling this like pressure of, okay, I need to write this piece or I need to, build this kind of point in perspective with Threads, I can say, okay, here's like 13 random thoughts pertaining to email marketing or pertaining to whatever my offer I want to highlight is. I like to see how it lands, and then if there's anything in that's distinctly stands out in my audience, so like maybe it gets a lot of replies or a lot of likes or a lot of questions, that's where I'll say, okay, you know what? People really resonated with this. Instead of just letting it die on Threads, I'm going to use it in an email, or I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about it more on my Instagram stories. And I think that would be something you would have fun playing with. Like, even if
Yeah.
you took one of your best performing LinkedIn posts, and I think anybody could do this, do kind of like a retroactive analysis, what has done well on other platforms and what would help you understand what would give you more data about like what is my audience interested in. We talked about on our first episode around brands that care and like being invested in that community. I think Threads is such a great resource for that because you can just throw so much out there and see what people are resonating with.
Yeah. So, do you have any examples of like what people are engaging with? Because I'm thinking like
Mm-hmm.
when I've always thought of X or Threads, I'm just kind of throwing out a thought and maybe it would get engagement, but it sounds like you're getting like people asking questions. Do you just have any examples of like what you're putting out there?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean a lot of times I will so we kind of look at like selling as I'm showcasing this offer, I'm showcasing this
Yeah.
product. And I view Threads really as a space where you can talk about the industry, you can talk about your expertise, and it is a community platform. So it's not just one you want to post and ghost or just like you know, let that be a microphone. Like it really is kind of like a sit down at the table and let's chat about it. And so like when I'm thinking about engagement and like having those conversations, a lot of times it is less about pushing an offer and more like, for me, I'll say like, I realize a lot of people are stressed out about email service provider platforms. Is it Klaviyo that's right for you? Is it Flowdesk? Which one's right? And I'll kind of throw out some points about like, I would recommend this for so-and-so, or this if you've got a CPG
Yeah.
brand. And people will kind of follow up with like, well, what about this scenario? What about this? And it's kind of like a micro consultation, but it's really
Yeah.
it's just a conversation. And so if I, like, even for Littlefoot, it could be something along the lines of like talking more about the matcha industry, your backstory. Um, I think there's so many things you could talk about when you open the frame from just the product to the whole industry, or even just, you know, like the founder story. What even brought you into this business in the first place? I have a political science degree, and a lot of times I'll talk about it on there about like how there's so many weird overlaps between email marketing and a political science degree
Yeah.
that no one would ever think of. And it's just this like natural space to have conversation flowing, and people can see that personality behind the brand.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think like it just always, when I saw brands doing it, it just felt like you're just throwing stuff at people and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a conversation. So, you know, with a lot of the brands I work with, they're much smaller and it's not like we have these huge budgets to create or like, you know, content for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, like all of them to be separate. For short
Mm-hmm.
form video, we post the same across all of them. And I think like that's why we've not approached like the text based accounts. Although I did mention like we do kind of like repurpose some Instagram stuff to put on threads. But I was doing some research because I'm like, what brands are doing something here, what's happening
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't feel like they're just talking to people. And two accounts that I thought were really interesting, and I don't want to like, you know, judge and say like this is a Gen Z person that came in and they're letting
Mm,
them do whatever, but that's what it feels like and it seems to be
yeah.
working, is
Mm-hmm.
King's Hawaiian Roll and Cinnabon. And
Mm-hmm.
like Cinnabon is just like, y'all need to go to the mall today, or you know, or just like I am Cinnabon. And then all these other brands were commenting like I am Razor, you know, whatever their brand or product is. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of one of those things of like, it did feel like a lot of brands are just interacting with each other and I wasn't really seeing consumers interact with that, but
Yeah.
those two accounts were actually seeing engagement. It just feels like somebody's, you know, pushing out their brain for the day.
Mm-hmm.
One other brand that I saw is Nothing, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, like the headphones, they make the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't look at their Instagram account, so I'm not sure if it's the same stuff, but it's like very meme focused and like kind of tech focused, which it always felt like Twitter, Threads, whatever was kind of geared toward like tech or politics or just things like you're naturally having conversations about.
Yeah.
I remember like when I first got into social media, I would cover so many events for clients, and my job was to live tweet the whole thing. Like I literally remember
Amazing.
going to this event one time and I'm on my computer like trying to think of things to tweet or like doing quotes and stuff like that. And now it kind of feels like that is Instagram stories. But I
Mm-hmm.
do want to make time to, like you said, for Littlefoot, for me personally, like use this as kind of a weapon.
Yeah.
When you first got started with this, like, or even now, like, are you just kind of putting stuff out there and people are commenting and you're commenting back, or are you going and engaging with other people too? And how are you finding the right people?
Yeah, I think you put it really succinctly as like there it does feel very like a Gen Z space where what is happening on Instagram is not what's happening on Threads. Instagram is like the polished version
Yeah.
where you know you put some thought into the reel or you put some thought into the carousel, and there's kind of like a call to action there. And just to kind of like paint the picture, this morning I woke up and I like there's this spider making a little web outside my kitchen window, and I literally went to Threads and I posted spider webs are kind of cool. And that's it sounds so stupid, but people were like, yeah, this is the coolest. Oh, they're super cool. Like just people are like, oh yeah, that's sick. But I think
Yeah.
it is like a really simple example that that has nothing to do with anything I do professionally. It's literally a dumb thought I had in my brain, and people felt the human aspect of that, of like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool. And so like for a strategy, when I think about what Threads does for my business, or what it can do for brands, is it positions the idea of like, let's using Cinnabon as an example. Who's the face of Cinnabon? Like, I couldn't tell you that,
Yeah.
but it gives them almost like a microphone, as if they were a person.
Yeah.
And so the strategy is really just like testing. It is, let's take an approach that is funny or silly. I think that is like the most common route for brands to take, especially like we saw it with Duolingo,
Yeah.
where the memification, the silly approach, it garners engagement because people see a joke and they don't need much context and they move on.
Yeah.
But there's so many other approaches you can take where it's the power of Threads is you can have one thought and build on it, with multiple posts in the threads. And I find a lot of times a great strategy to use is just start with a really simple point, right? We want to hook people the same way we would at the beginning of a reel or in, a longer caption, and build on that thought, create more depth with it with each reply. And you probably want to max out at like 4-5 posts in a single thread, just because like attention spans are limited in that sense. But that is something that I have had a lot of success with my own work. And then, when I'm consulting with people about like, okay, you should get into social media or into threads because it complements email really well. I'll say like, just spend a week where every day you have a tab open on your computer, and while you're working, if there's a thought that comes to mind where you're like, oh, that's kind of funny, or like, oh, I bet someone who is new to this industry or doesn't know much about this product would probably benefit from that, go to the tab and just drop the thought in. And I think the magic of threads right now is reach. And
Yeah.
so when you are funneling energy in that direction and casting a wide net with multiple posts a day, the algorithm really has far better reach than I'm seeing pretty much anywhere else right now. And so that's kind of the marketing aspect of it, where it's like, you can meet anybody, you can find anybody. And the people you think, oh, they're probably not using threads, they're using threads because
Yeah.
threads is being pushed to Instagram, it's being pushed to Facebook. And so it's important to really consider the fact that people are seeing this on a bunch of different platforms. That was kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but the strategy is a lot of times like finding what feels good for you and what you can do consistently, and then doubling down on it when it works for your audience too.
Yeah, and going back to your point about like how it relates to email, like I think about, because I don't get on threads, but I
Mm-hmm.
will if I'm on Instagram and I see something and it'll be like a headline and it cuts off and I'm like, I have to click this, I need to know what
Yeah.
it says. And I feel like that's the same as your subject line of like, you're getting it in front of people. Is it enough for them to click to, open it up to learn more?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, again, like, yeah, I do think it is important for brands to be doing that, because I know all the brands are, trying to be super active and have engagement on Instagram.
Yeah.
But going back to your point about Duolingo, and I think, and I think this is what King's Hawaiian and Cinnabon is doing.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be Wendy's. Like, Wendy's has been the
Mm-hmm.
case study for short form text, post, whatever, for 10 years. I don't know. Like,
Long
I don't
time.
remember exactly when Twitter came out at first, but, and I haven't kept up with Wendy's in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I have not thought about eating Wendy's in forever long, but I think about them when people talk about like big brands and great case studies,
Mm-hmm.
is how they're just kind of unhinged. I think Burger King does some of the same, and like it feels like the fast food or food has kind of gotten into that. And I'm working on a strategy for a hot chicken place right now, and I think we're going to kind of be, kind of fun and fiery,
Amazing.
spicy with it. But I'm just thinking like, for you, and you mentioned like you've talked about Klaviyo or Flowdesk on there, are those brands responding or engaging, or do you ever
Yes.
engage or see brands on your account?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because Flowdesk specifically is very active on there. They've made a big effort to, I think because they have a lot of service providers in
Yeah.
their audience, and they realized so much of their audience is on Threads just naturally. They're very active. Klaviyo is, I guess I follow them. I don't see a whole bunch of their stuff. Doesn't mean that they aren't active, but from a community perspective, yeah, I see Flowdesk on there a lot. But yeah, the the brand side, I find the brands that I'm seeing, like big name brands that are gaining traction on Threads, are invested in replying. And
Yeah.
they'll post, but they're more concerned with following, because you can follow like the hashtag and
Yeah.
have like a designated feed for anybody who mentions your keyword. You can just go in and reply to a bunch of those. I think that's a really great strategy for growth on Threads. Is like I said, you can create your own timeline, so not just people you follow, but you can curate, okay, these specific people that I follow. You can curate and go through and just like reply by keyword. And so you could say, okay, if my offer is like a, I don't know, apparel, you could, maybe it's like athleisure, you could do the keyword athleisure, you could do the keyword work from home, you could do Pilates, like what are the key, like the important keywords right now. And you could just go through, and when people are talking about like, oh, who are we buying from right now for really cute quarter zips, and you could say like, hey, we got this new product coming in, we would love
Yeah.
to get your thoughts on it. I mean, there's a lot of power in the replies on Threads. And so even if you're not yet ready to like approach posting, that's a super easy way to get a pulse for what are people asking about on Threads that maybe you aren't seeing elsewhere. I think reverting to your FAQs is always kind of like a really easy way to create content. So on Threads, you could say, we get a ton of questions about, I don't know, if our product is right for this type of person, and here's why we think it is. So a lot of ideas there for testing content. But yeah, it's really just about like just seeing what your audience likes, because much like with email, it differs by brand, it differs by audience. And just because you see King's Hawaiian or Cinnabon doing one thing doesn't mean your audience is going to resonate
Yeah.
with it. And yeah, really leaning into your brand voice. Like, is your brand voice naturally kind of silly? Then you probably should take that approach. Or if it's a little bit more polished and serious, then you should probably take like a little bit more polished and serious voice on there.
Yeah, and I think to that point, like so many brands want to do, something fun, and maybe that is an
Mm-hmm.
outlet for them to do that. I had a brand that like they wanted Instagram to be a little bit more polished because that's where Whole Foods and all the retailers were looking to see them. But then
Yeah.
they let their TikTok be completely unhinged. And I think that would be a
Mm-hmm.
fun strategy is like, okay, hey, if you follow like our visual accounts, we're this way, but if you come talk to us on this channel, like we're off the rails talking about this other stuff. And I think like that would grab people's attention, so that could be fun to kind of
Yeah.
test and get people talking. But to your point about social listening, like I tell people that for Instagram and TikTok every day, it's like, yes, the more content we can create that's actually, quality and not just fluff stuff that we're putting out there, the better.
Yeah.
But if you can't create that, you need to be on there engaging with people, as you mentioned, kind of like talking to people, seeing what's trending. That's all that we're doing all the time, is like looking at trends, trying to figure out what people are talking about and creating content to that. And I've told people this all the time, but like your comment on an Instagram video or a Threads post, whatever, can go just as viral as that video that you spent 6 hours or whatever amount of money to make happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a huge thing, but I do think the social listening side can seem harder sometimes than actually creating the content, because you have to go and find it. You can't
Yeah.
just have this idea, create it and post it. You actually have to go find the right people to engage with and the right audiences, whether that is from doing all your research or even making like to, because I think this is something I would do is like, okay, who are people that I admire or brands that I admire. Let me see if they're active on Threads, and just have this list that I can click open every day to see if they're posting and go and chat with them. But that
Yeah.
takes a lot more time and thoughtfulness, not all the time, but sometimes, to creating the actual content. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
I mean, for sure. And it's like, but I think it's a layered thing though, because the more time you spend on that, the easier it's going to become to
Yeah,
know what content to make and to know,
exactly.
like, you know what, people are always asking about this. I should just kind of do a couple thread posts on it. So yeah, I mean, I think the time investment up front is worth it in the long run, especially once you start to really get traction. I mean, I I know I've kind of painted this picture already, but I have not just over 930 followers, right? Like nothing crazy at all. And my reach for the last, well, now my phone doesn't want to load, but for the last 30 days, my preview says 26,000 views, and
Wow.
like I don't spend more than probably 5-10 minutes a day thinking about it, and it's not something right now that I'm like it has my full drive towards marketing, and that's the reach that I get, right? Like 10 to 15 posts of just random thoughts, information about my offer and my industry, replies, and then I'm done, and it does so much legwork for us. So the time is really well spent on that
Yeah.
front. I'm curious though, from what you said, like when we talk about kind of introducing another social platform, I know most people are like, "Ah, we just it's YouTube, it's
Yeah.
Instagram, it's TikTok, it's Instagram stories." Like that in and of itself can sometimes be its own platform. Do you feel like there's a sweet spot where if someone's like, okay, maybe I want to get on Threads, but like I am already on all these other places, is it even worth one more platform for me? Do you think there's like a sweet spot of X amount of platforms to be on for your brand, or is it just like test it, see what works, and then toss it if it doesn't work?
Yeah, that's such a hard question. I mean, I think like part of it goes back to what is your budget? Just because,
Yeah,
like, if your budget or your time doesn't allocate for you to be on 5 platforms, then you can't appropriately be on all of them. Like,
yeah,
and to your point about like you spend 5 to 10 minutes a day thinking about it, that's all that it takes. So once you're good, like that's something easy that we can throw in, and I think can be a part of like community management time is the threads,
mm,
because like we don't need the graphic designer to make anything, and if we look at this as like a community manager commenting back to stuff, they can
yeah,
easily do that. So that this might be an easier one to throw in, but I
yeah,
think like what I don't remember what happened. It was a few years ago, and I think Instagram was cleaning up bot accounts or something, and
mm,
all these people that had millions of followers lost a ton of followers. Like, I think
mm-hmm,
all of us lost a few followers because they just
yeah,
cleaned out everything, and then everybody freaked out. And I'm like, not just me, the industry
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
we cannot have our eggs in one basket, because any
mm-hmm,
of these platforms can disappear tomorrow, and then you have nothing. Same
yeah,
thing when the privacy stuff changed on iPhone, and all the Facebook ads, like the
yep,
pricing went like crazy, and nobody was getting any sales anymore, whatever. Like
yeah,
everybody's relying on these things. So I do think you have to diversify that.
yeah,
Now, to my point, I would say like with any brand I'm starting with, I'm kind of like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, just because
yeah,
short form video is going to be the top priority for me. And I can
yeah,
post that across all 3 accounts. And then Instagram kind of feels like your bread and butter at this
mm-hmm,
point. We might repost some stuff of that to Facebook. We might repost some stuff of that to LinkedIn, but those are going to be the 3 that I'm focusing on. And
sure,
then if I can convince the founder or people to be active on LinkedIn, I really push them for that.
yeah,
Most of my brands, just because I'm in CPG, we're not really posting too much to the brand account on LinkedIn unless we're like
mm-hmm,
hiring or it's like big investment updates or things like that.
yeah,
So I maybe if there's an answer, I would say 3 accounts. But to your
yeah,
point of like, there's already going to be a community manager managing responses and watching things on those accounts. And if we can really get into a good rhythm and have a good strategy for threads, why can't we throw in a 10 minutes a day like that? That isn't
yeah,
a big lift. And I think I was talking earlier about like how I'm posting to LinkedIn every day, and you were talking about like it might feel like a lot to have that perfect post because it's your one chance a day. I
Yeah.
was really nervous about that, but now that I've been doing it for a few months, anytime I have an idea, like you said, you have the threads tab open. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to my like
Yeah.
editorial calendar, writing that down, and it comes so easy to me now. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't take me a lot of time. And I think that's the biggest hump that everybody needs to get over, whether you're a founder doing this alone or you have a team, is like, it's just going to take that beginning learning curve. But I think, as you mentioned, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, you should be good to go. Like, I think
Yeah.
everybody will be fine. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like even if you can't, if you don't have someone doing community management for you, like it is partly just a routine.
Yeah.
And I think too, like honestly, it could be a great for threads specifically, it could be a great opportunity for you to find what you like on there, because if you know, we're kind of having this conversation about it, the voice can vary based on platform, whether it's like serious on Instagram and silly on TikTok or whatever. But if you don't know what you like you're handing off something to someone who is going to figure it out for you. We're going to, you know, try it
Yeah.
and decide what's resonating with your audience. Whereas if you're like, you know what, let me just DIY this for like 2 months, figure out what I actually like for us on this platform and figure out what resonates, and then I can just hand it off and
Yeah.
it's smooth. I mean, you know, and a lot of that will come down to preference, but that is interesting to kind of consider just in terms of time bandwidth and budget and what makes the most sense for everybody. But I'm going to keep pushing threads. I'm going to keep, I
Yeah.
mean, because I just think it is it's a great platform too. If you're like, we have this giant email list, or we have this giant, you know, specific type of segment of our audience on Instagram, you can go to threads and say, you know what, I wonder what they would think about this kind of an idea or this kind of a product. That's another thing that I see a lot of on threads is the build in public approach, where it's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're in the process of formulating a new whatever, and we want to know, like, what are you needing the most right now? We're trying to bridge the gap between this product and this product. Or I forget who was it that just gosh, I can't remember who it was, but there's a athleisure brand that just rolled out like this new tennis skirt, and it was like a second version or a third version of the product, and they did so much of it in public that by the time they were ready to launch, their wait list was
Yeah.
hot. I mean,
Was it set active?
it might have been set active. I didn't
I
want to
just
say
feel
that
like
if
they're
it,
hot on social. I don't know if they did the tennis
yeah.
skirt, but they're killing it with social and doing a really good job if people need a place to look for inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of them that are doing that. I really can't remember, but I remember thinking like, I mean, that is why people double down on the build in public
Yeah.
approach, is because it does everything we've talked about in this episode and the last one, where you're investing in your community, right? They feel heard by you. It's making sure that you're actually improving the product and not just putting out something to put out something. And then, you know, Threads is a great tool to do that. And it is just like you're just in the room with people
Yeah.
figuring out how to make what you do better every single time. So
Yeah.
I'm always going to push for threads until, you know, I think maybe this whole conversation is caveated with the notion that like meta changes all the time,
Yeah.
and it could change at any moment. And just like you said, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to kind of like test it out, see if you like it, and yeah, just see if
Yeah.
it works for you and your audience.
Yeah. So it sounds like for all the brands and founders out there, if you have 2 minutes a day, just try to do it, get started for a week or two, and yeah, let us
Hmm.
know what you think.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Well, that's threads.